The Allen Line Company wishes everyone a happy and prosperous 2024. Be safe out there.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
As is well documented, broker fraud and broker abuse are running rampant right now. Fighting back starts with holding those bad actors accountable. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association is a new tool designed to make that a bit easier. Tom Crowley of OOIDA's Business Services Department and Jamie Jones of Landline Magazine join us to explain. Later this month, the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance will launch their Human Trafficking Awareness initiative. So what's involved? Jake Elovirta of CVSA comes on the show to explain. And finally, 2023 ended on another down note in the spot market, but there were some bright spots to point out as we head into a new year with new hopes. Robert Rouse of DAT breaks down the latest numbers. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today, diesel prices on the decline once again. That's according to two separate metrics. First, the Energy Information Administration says the national average dipped nearly 4 cents last week to $3.87 a gallon. That erases an increase recorded the previous week, which at the time broke 8 consecutive weeks of declines. Prices dropped in all 10 regions on the EIA survey. The Midwest region recorded the biggest dip at nearly 5 cents. ProMiles.com, meanwhile, is tracking modest declines this week. They had the national average on Tuesday morning at $3.91 a gallon, down about 1.5 cents from the same time last week. A Florida agency's request for an exemption from part of the CDL skills test regulations has been met with a mixed response. In December, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration published an exemption request from the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles regarding the test order. The regulations require that the 3-part CDL skills test be administered and successfully completed in the following order: pre-trip inspection, basic vehicle control skills, and on-road skills. But the Florida agency wants FMCSA to grant a tester the discretion to continue testing an applicant who fails the pre-trip inspection or basic vehicle control segments of the test. They'd also like the option of allowing the applicant to come back at a later date to retake the failed segments. The public was given a 30-day comment period running through January 4th. The comments, a mix of support and opposition. The National Tank Truck Carriers told FMCSA that it should grant the Florida agency's request, claiming the process would be more efficient. But several commenters raised safety concerns. One truck driver said FMCSA should be focused on improving the quality of new CDL holders, not the other way around. We've got a link to comment on our website, landlinenow.com, and a full write-up of this story at landline.media. The state of California has hit the pause button on plans to enforce its Advanced Clean Fleets regulation. Last week, the California Air Resources Board issued a notice informing the public it will not enforce the regulation, which was supposed to go into effect for certain fleets on New Year's Day. Requiring 100% of manufacturers' sales be zero-emission trucks by 2036, the Advanced Clean Fleets regulation was approved by CARB last April. However, California cannot unilaterally establish emission standards that are stricter than federal standards without first getting a waiver from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. A request for that waiver was not submitted until November 15th. In its enforcement notice, CARB said it is waiting for the EPA to approve that waiver or deem it unnecessary before moving forward with enforcement. Cummins has agreed to cough up more than $1.5 billion in fines for violating the Clean Air Act. The Department of Justice says a truck engine manufacturer installed defeat devices which override or bypass a vehicle's emission control systems on nearly 1 million Ram pickup trucks. While Cummins has admitted no wrongdoing, it has agreed to pay the United States and the state of California more than $1.6 billion in penalties. The agreement requires court approval. The DOJ says the fine is the largest ever issued for a violation of the Clean Air Act and the second largest environmental fine issued in U.S. history. A wide-ranging recall has been issued for more than 24 trailer models. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says PJ Trailers is recalling more than 30 different 2024 models for potential tire bubbling and delamination issues. The recall is in response to another recall of Good Ride tires manufactured in China. PJ Trailers will inspect and replace tires if needed at no cost to owners. A cash reward is now available for information that helps authorities find a missing Iowa truck driver. We told you before about 53-year-old David Schultz. The livestock hauler was last seen in late November in the Sac City, Iowa area. His loaded truck left abandoned along with his wallet and cell phone. The Sac County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation and has followed up on several leads over the past several weeks, but nothing has turned up. With the trail cold, the Sheriff's Office is now offering up to $2,000 for information related to Schultz's disappearance. An investigation is underway in southern Texas after a truck driver was killed in a workplace accident. The Hidalgo County Sheriff's Office says 46-year-old Luis Rivera Jr. was found dead inside the cab of his truck early Tuesday morning. Authorities say Rivera was at the location to pick up a load of gravel. His tractor had been crushed. No other details have been released so far, but OSHA has been called in to help with the investigation. The turn of a new year means higher toll rates on the Ohio Turnpike. For Easy Pass customers driving commercial vehicles, the rate is up more than a cent to just over 20 cents a mile. Ohio Turnpike authorities say the rate increase is to keep up with operating costs. Ohio is hardly alone in raising rates for the new year. January 1st also led to hikes on the New York State Thruway, 2 expressways in North Carolina, and the Illinois Tollway, among others. A few more rest areas in Ohio, along with truck parking spaces, are closing down for renovations. Starting January 11th, the rest areas on US 23 in Wyandotte County and US 30 in Van Wert County will be closed. The Ohio DOT says they won't reopen until sometime in 2025, and in the meantime, they expect a larger number of commercial vehicles to be parked on entrance and exit ramps in the area. It's the latest in ODOT's plans to renovate rest stops statewide. In November, they closed rest areas on Interstate 70 in Belmont and Muskegum counties for full demolition and reconstruction. 2 new inspection facilities have opened up along Interstate 80 in Iowa. The Iowa State Patrol Commercial Motor Vehicle Unit says a new CMV inspection building at the Jasper Way Station opened on New Year's Day. Troopers said the building allows for inspections to be done in a safe, climate-controlled environment. Soon they'll also have public restrooms available for drivers to use 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Iowa officials have plans to open a similar facility at the I-80 Dallas Way Station in the near future. And finally, a Michigan city has gone viral over a pothole. More specifically, over a leather recliner someone used to cover up the pothole in Grand Haven. That was just the start, though. UPI reports the recliner was removed, but then replaced by a blue armchair, followed by other furniture to make for a full outdoor living room. That got the attention of city officials, as you might imagine, but they say their hands are tied. Since the pothole is on a private road, they say they're not responsible for filling it. So until the owner of that property decides to take action, residents have a place to hold a block party and get rid of unwanted furniture along the way. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Do you have a news tip? Maybe you have a comment about something you heard on the air, or maybe you just have a question about something happening in the trucking industry. Email us at landlinenow@ooida.com. Again, that email address is landlinenow@ooida.com. You can write a letter to your elected officials in Congress or look up contact information for lawmakers who represent you on the state and federal level by using the website fightingfortruckers.com. Again, that website, fightingfortruckers.com. Next, Scott Thompson covers a new tool to fight broker fraud with Tom Crowley of OOIDA's Business Services Department and Jamie Jones of Landline Magazine. I'll discuss an effort to combat human trafficking with Jake Elovirta of the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, and we'll hear how 2023 ended in the freight market from Robert Rouse of DAT. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Welcome back to Landline Now. If 2023 may be remembered in part for the escalating problem of broker abuse in the trucking industry, why not make 2024 the year in which the problem is meted out? OOIDA members have a new tool to push back against unscrupulous brokers, and joining us to talk about it are Tom Crowley of the association's Business Services Department and Jamie Jones of Landline Magazine. Happy New Year to both of you.
Happy New Year.
Good to be here.
Welcome, welcome. Let's cut right to the chase here because I want to talk about the scope of the broker abuse problem here in just a moment. But let's start with what we hope, what we think may be a possible remedy, at least toward solving this problem and holding bad brokers accountable. And Tom, it's a form letter of sorts, I guess we could call it.
It is. Basically, it's a letter that outlines the regulation under 371, the broker transparency rule. And I know it gets a lot of play as to just about the rate, but it's more than the rate. The broker transparency rule covers the entire transaction. You want to request from the broker all the documentation from the transaction. You are entitled to that. And that's what this broker request letter will do is you just fill in the blanks and send it to the broker that you have an issue with. And, you want to know what the rate is. Okay, you should get that too. But, it has to do with the detention time, whether it was billed for and charged, the truck order not used, anything that goes, any transaction that happened with that load, that's the information that you want. You want to see entirety what's going on.
And this is important because right now we do have bad brokers out there who are, let's put it frankly, taking advantage of people, stealing their money.
Stealing their money.
Yeah, really. And what this does, in accordance with the regulations already on the books, this is a request for those records which you are already entitled to, which you aren't necessarily getting right now.
Exactly. And you hear that from carriers all the time. They get a claim thrown at them with no documentation. It's nothing but a standard presentation of claim is what it'll say on the letterhead. And then it's a broker saying, hey, there's a claim for X amount of dollars. You owe us that, and that's it. You owe us. No other proof of claim.
Yeah.
I think it's important to go back to the fact that bad brokers have existed since brokers have been around.
Yes.
There's always that unscrupulous group out there in any given profession. So what we're seeing, though, and it's very cyclical in how this works, and it's not just when it comes to broker dealings. We see the same thing on fuel surcharges. Mm-hmm. When everybody's making money, hand over fist, the rates are high, the fuel prices are low. Nobody wants to get into the minutia. They're too busy just making bank.
Yeah.
Making bank. So when fuel prices skyrocket, then people are interested in how do I get that fuel surcharge? When rates are really low, we don't want those brokers taking that 60% or whatever we suspect. And certainly you don't have the bankroll to sustain a really bad claim. You're just not making as much money. So when the business environment gets tougher on trucking, that's when we see these interest levels peak, and why we need to force the issue of transparency that's been on the books since these bad brokers existed.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And it is with the rates at an all-time low, and which they are, everybody's crying that the rates are low. That's why it's an issue. And all I can say is when the rates get better, people tend to forget. Mm-hmm. And that has happened before.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reality was we were in the middle of a pandemic. The panic buying had happened. Mm-hmm. Rates were good because they had to get that stuff restocked back out there. So everybody's, again, making money hands over fist. And it, politics aside, it was just the nature of the economic cycle that was created by the pandemic. And now we're seeing the downslope of that, which we were overdue a recession, to be honest. The economy always self-corrects. So that's why we're seeing more of this now. But OOIDA has this form letter that equips, you in this situation when things are bad, and we need to continue to keep that pressure on.
Let me be a glass half empty kind of guy for a second, because this is, I know there's a lot of people out there like that. We know that brokers aren't following the rules, some of them. There are many great brokers out there that are following the rules and taking care of people. Again, we're talking about the bad ones out there that are not doing that. You submit this letter, you've got a problem, you think the broker is, pulling one over on you. You submit this form letter to them, you ask for all your records, and they simply say, no, thanks, we're good.
That's what I expect from most of the issues, most of the bad actors in the field.
Yeah.
So at that point, then you also submit, once you've give a certain amount of time, you decide how much time goes by. Then you submit a complaint to the NCCDB, National Consumer Complaint Database, which we've discussed. That name doesn't quite fit, but
that's who you go to.
That is who you go to.
Regardless of their name.
And you submit a complaint to them, supply them with the documentation and your whole situation, and wait on their reply. I mean, that is unfortunately the process that you have to go through.
Yeah. And that's a frustrating thing, because I think, and we talked about this earlier, there are a lot of people out there, and I understand it. You get a $600 claim that you're not getting paid out for, and you ask yourself, is it worth fighting this over, $600 or $700 or whatever it is? In a lot of cases, it probably is, and the brokers are counting on that.
The brokers are counting on the fact that most one-truck operations, it's difficult for somebody to step out of their truck and to make the court dates and to do all this stuff. But, and it's not just a $600 claim, because I see many claims that are much more than that. Yeah. They're enough that they put a carrier out of business.
And we were talking about that earlier. You recently had a call with somebody that had to go through that.
I did. I spoke to some folks that had a claim by a broker, and it was a mixed load of products. It was a grocery load. Part of it was a frozen load. Part of it was a dry load. It was, as the pandemic has brought on, no drivers on the docks. That's pretty much everywhere. And yet you sign for this stuff, that you receive it in good order and you're going to deliver it. Well, in this particular situation, it was part frozen, part dry. The driver was told instructions on the Raycon, show up with your reefer at 33. He did that, pre-cooled. He'd done all the stuff. Driver not allowed on the dock. They loaded these grocery products on the truck. 12 hours they was on his truck. He went from 6 p.m. when he got loaded till 6 a.m. for the delivery, got to the delivery, and not allowed on the delivery dock either. Sign, seal intact. They pulled this stuff off, and the frozen product was all kicked because it was not cold enough. Well, you can't put warm, dry product on with frozen product, intermix them, and think that the frozen product's going to stay at
33.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let's start with the fact that it was above freezing to begin with.
Yeah,
true. But the issue here is the driver then had all this stuff put back on his truck, had to take it to a dump and get it dumped, pay for the dump ticket, only to find out there's almost a $28,000 claim put against this driver, and it cross-collateralized or offset with all the other monies that they had coming from that broker, which he had already taken advances on from his factor. I mean, it put him out of business. He ended up getting his truck repoed because he couldn't make his payment. And I spoke to him last week, and they were pretty upset.
And this is one of those situations you go back to, well, what role would this letter that we're talking about play in something like that? And clearly, it's not magically going to get you back in business by the end of the week.
True.
What this is another bullet in your arsenal, if you will, and that's that documentation process that any enforcement action, if you can get the attention of FMCSA through the National Consumer Complaint Database, if you can get their attention for enforcement, they're going to want documentation like this, anything that you can provide. And then if you don't get that enforcement, the first attorney you call, they're going to be asking for the same thing. What did you do to protect yourself? What are the steps you have taken to make this legal action easier for us? Yeah. So it's definitely a tool, and it's something that I would not at all be shy about using. If you feel like you're not getting the straight scoop from your broker in any way, shape, or form on any transaction, top of the segment, Tom, you listed off a number of pieces to the transaction. If you don't feel like any of those, there is nothing wrong with hopping on the members only section at OOIDA and getting that letter and getting it out there and starting that dialogue with your broker. And if they're not willing to be transparent, maybe this isn't a broker.
Walk away.
Walk away.
That's it. And when you look at these, there's a lot of contractual clauses in these contracts that tell you basically you have to take the broker's word for it, and on detention, on layover, and all this, you have to negotiate for that stuff when you've got this stuff on your truck and you can't move. I mean, you're in a compromised position to negotiate. So if you have a question, and and I've heard this from many carriers out there, well, the broker said they would take care of me. I don't know what that means, but it's not good, I can guarantee you. So that is where this request form comes in. It says in there that you have a right to see all transactions, all parts of this transaction. Request that documentation. And here's a part whether you talk about broker carrier contracts or owner operator lease carrier contracts or anything else. If you don't exercise your rights, you tend to lose them. The standard operating procedure is, you don't need those. You don't need those. Don't you trust us? I don't know about you, but I don't trust anybody with my money.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to get away with all that they can until you enforce your rights. And that's, you need to look for brokers who are willing to be business partners. And so, hitting them with one of these letters, seeking that transparency early in a relationship with the broker is probably going to tell you a lot about what that's going to look like over time. Yeah. And if they buck at the beginning of it and say, no, we're not doing that, then that's your
first hint that
it really
something doesn't smell right here.
Right. And then, the other thing, those broker carrier agreements, you've got to read the fine print. And
nobody wants to do that.
Well, they get them on their phone. They get them on their phone. They're a multi-page legal document that you really need to take the time to understand. Because when I get the call saying, what are my rights? The first thing I say is, well, let's go back to your broker carrier agreement. What's that say? And he's like, oh, well, they probably haven't read it and don't even know where it's at.
Yeah. Well, it probably was presented to them in DocuSign and they signed it without downloading a copy or even reading it. And that is definitely a service that Business Services provides. They'll help you walk through these agreements and show you the pitfalls, and members need to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And Tom, I mean, you and your colleagues up there in Business Services have seen pretty much all there is to see. You're happy to go through these.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to read them, but it's important again.
And it is important that you know what you sign. By all means. I mean, the association holds that you can't sign away federal regulation.
Yeah.
They can't
protections under the federal regs.
You can't contract out of that. Yet we see these brokers constantly trying to do this, and that's part of what's got us in the situation we're at now.
Let me ask you a quick question here. We've got 1 minute here, and we're talking about obviously what happens, if something goes bad, and to kind of protect yourself maybe ahead of time as well. Just general advice, because we've seen this story has just taken on a life of its own over the past year or so. General advice for people out there with regard to how they're dealing with brokers out there.
Well, because of the fact that as the carrier, everything's on your back. If you're not allowed on the dock, you sign shipper load and count. You sign driver not allowed on dock. You take your phone. Everybody's got a digital phone. Take a picture of that sign that says no drivers on the dock, because these are going to be your protections when the proverbial crap hits the fan.
Yeah.
And the load's short, over, damaged, whatever. It's coming back on you unless you can prove, prove positive that it wasn't your fault.
CYA, baby.
Yeah.
Always.
Document. Tom, Jamie, again, this is an important thing. Hopefully 2024 we see things improve, but this letter we hope will help improve the entire situation here, and every little bit counts.
It will improve if people exercise their rights and hold brokers accountable, Just hold them accountable.
Jamie, Tom, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Tom Crowley and Jamie Jones. If you'd like to check out the form for yourself, OOIDA members can find it on the OOIDA website. Just go to OOIDA.com, click on the menu, and under Business Services, you'll see the link for Request for Broker Documents. And if you have any questions, you can reach out by phone, 816-229-5791. We've run out of time for the moment, so we'll pull over and take a quick break. But stick around, there's more Landline Now to come.
Attention professional drivers, are you behind on your tax filings? You owe money? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. You watch the road, we'll keep an eye on the IRS. Call now, 855-976-4291.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget this. It's accuracy when your truck on a cat scale.
Landline Now, welcome back. Later this month, the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance will launch its Human Trafficking Awareness Initiative. I talked with Jake Elovirta, CVSA's Director of Enforcement Programs, about the program and what's involved.
The Human Trafficking Awareness Initiative was part of an outgrowth from CVSA's Human Trafficking Prevention Program that the Alliance stood up in 2020. That program is basically the jurisdictions and industry coming together to address the issue of human trafficking and how to raise awareness and outreach to both enforcement and industry members. So what happened is a number of the members within the Human Trafficking Prevention Program, specifically jurisdictions like Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, had already been doing what they call the Quad State Initiative, where they focused typically it was a 3-day event, where the whole intention of the event was to do outreach to industry during their day-to-day operations, whether you're at the scale house or you may have been stopped at the side of the roadway for an inspection. It was just the jurisdictions reaching out to drivers and talking to them about human trafficking, and also collaborating with the efforts of Truckers Against Trafficking as well. So handing out the driver's wallet cards, and if applicable, where the companies would allow it, giving them window stickers that highlighted the national hotline number. And based on the feedback that we had heard from those originally 3 and then 4 states, was that they felt like it was having an impact. And we wanted to expand it to a national and actually international direction. So in 2022, we did our first initiative, the Human Trafficking Awareness Initiative. And the one thing I would want to highlight is this is a outreach campaign. This is not an enforcement campaign or anything. This is truly, really a focused outreach of just officers, inspectors, industry, the safety directors, during the course of this event, just do an outreach to folks to talk about human trafficking. What are the indicators? What are the things that a driver, an officer, an inspector, if they think they see it, what they need to do to report it so that we can recover the victims, get the victims of human trafficking out of that situation. So 2021, we did it as a 3-day event, kind of tailored off of what the Quad State Initiative had been. And after we did the event, we came back as a group and we received feedback from everybody involved that had participated. And the feedback from everybody was, 3 days isn't enough. We'd like to make it a 5-day event, a little more opportunity for additional folks to be involved. Depending on the day of the week where it was falling, it sometimes wasn't feasible to participate. And so we expanded it to 5 days this past year, and we were very successful. We had 45 jurisdictions that participated last year in the event. There were over 3,000 individual law enforcement officers, troopers, and inspectors that participated. There were events, over 200 events involving human trafficking awareness and prevention. Over 200 presentations were delivered, and over 8,300 media contacts nationwide in the U.S. about human trafficking. Now, this is a 3-month initiative because what we do is we tailor the event to each individual country's Human Trafficking Awareness Day. So in the U.S., it's January 11th. In Canada, it's February 22nd. And in Mexico's case, they don't have a specific day identified, but following in the pattern of how the U.S. and Canada does it within the month, they do it in March, in similar timeline of that month that the other countries participate do. And the feedback's been positive, though. So that's kind of a wordy nutshell of how the Human Trafficking Awareness Initiative came about.
I'm curious, normally CVSA officers would engage with truckers at a weigh station or during an inspection or something like that. Where and when are they going to touch base with truckers as part of this program?
It would be the same period, Mark. It really is to, when they're talking, taking the extra time where normally they may just be doing the inspection. Like when we do road check, you're talking to the driver, you're doing the inspection of the vehicle. Very similar, only it isn't focused towards the inspections, just they're in the normal day-to-day operations, having the outreach with the drivers. So if a driver comes in a weigh station and he's inspected, that inspector or trooper or officer may take another extra 5 to 10 minutes to talk with the driver and say, what do you know about human trafficking? And have you seen signs of it? Do you know who to call if you happen to see human trafficking? Because, we know within the commercial transportation sector, it's very easy to move trafficked victims kind of almost anonymously. And the traffickers themselves know it. So we know the professional drivers out there are seeing it. They know that what they see at truck stops, they know what they see at rest areas, whether they may see it at a gas station or a fuel depot. It's one of those things of we're trying to raise the awareness that if they see something, say something and report it to law enforcement. And that's the biggest thing our goal is to educate those drivers so that they know what they're seeing. And if they feel like it's a human trafficking, they feel comfortable to say, okay, this is who I call. I need to call law enforcement. I need to give them this particular information.
The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, it's all about commercial vehicle safety. It's right there in the name. And this doesn't seem directly related to that. Why does CVSA see this as part of their mission?
Because of our involvement with the industry. This is something where, we're always talking to drivers. That was the one thing when I was in law enforcement. I always enjoyed talking to drivers. Drivers would tell me things they were seeing, stuff. The drivers can be the eyes for law enforcement. I think the last count they said there's approximately 13,000 commercial vehicle enforcement inspectors in the Alliance. That's not a lot of inspectors compared to the number of professional drivers who are out driving the highway that have the opportunity to kind of see what's going on and help us in reporting those type of incidents. So it makes sense to collaborate with industry, to work with Truckers Against Trafficking, to help. This is probably one of the most heinous crimes there is. And it's not just in the U.S., it's also in worldwide. I think the national hotline back in there from 2021 stats, I think we were looking at 10,000 plus calls were made to the hotline, and over 16,000 trafficked victims were recovered as a result of that activities. So it just tells you how important of an effort this is, and it just makes sense to be a partner in collaboration to address this because it is such a heinous crime.
You mentioned the importance there. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how important do you think the role of commercial truck drivers is in the effort to fight human trafficking? Why are they a particularly important piece of that puzzle?
Because the drivers, and when we talk about it, Mark, one of the things that I would highlight is we're not just talking our professional drivers that are just over the road. We also talk about the drivers out there in the day cabs, the delivery folks that are in our neighborhoods and communities. Those drivers know when they see something that looks out of sorts, and when you give them the tools of what to look for in the training that is provided, and the links to that type of information, it just really is a force multiplier. Those drivers have an opportunity to see those things and to have an impact to recover a survivor or a victim of human trafficking, and that's where what we're looking to is really is a force multiplier of being able to lean on the commercial drivers to provide information and to report what they see for human trafficking and help to reduce it.
What do you hope results from all of this effort?
The biggest thing, our efforts with this event, this campaign this year is to educate the general public, both the commercial drivers out there as well as the general public. That's one of the things that we're really excited about this year is we partnered with CVS Community Partnership to create PSAs on human trafficking focused in the commercial transportation sector. And so those will be have started to air on CBS's platforms. They have what they call their IQ network, which includes CBS, Paramount Plus, all those different types of channels affiliated with it. Our PSAs are also posted on our website at cvsa.org. And just today we posted a just under 5-minute long form video. And in the video is a victim survivor of human trafficking who was trafficked at age 15. There was a professional driver who's been in the business for 23 years, as well as an officer from Michigan State Police who has been involved in doing outreach and education to industry. And so it's this video is really a powerful. Somebody happened to screen it today for me and made the fact that it's a really powerful moving video for just under 5 minutes, but you hear it from 3 different perspectives about what they're doing to combat human trafficking, and particularly the victim, Joy Friedman, who was a victim survivor, to hear her talk about it when she was trafficked at age 15 and just she's out of it and she's happy. She has grandchildren now and has a life. But, it's how much of an impact it has on individual people.
Can you go over one more time when this takes place in each of the 3 countries that are taking part?
Sure. So the campaigns are tailored around each individual month of the year for the national campaign. So in the case of the U.S., January 11th has been identified by as part of the National Day recognizing human trafficking and raising awareness. So our campaign in the U.S. will start Monday, January 8th, a little early yet, and runs till January 12th. And then in Canada, their event occurs on February 22nd. So in Canada, the event for Canada will be February 19th through the 23rd. And then for Mexico, it will be March 11th through the 15th.
Fantastic. Well, Jake, thanks again. I sure appreciate your time, and take care out there, okay?
I will, sir. Thank you very much.
That was Jake Elovirta, CVSA's Director of Enforcement Programs, talking about the group's Human Trafficking Awareness Initiative. We'll have links to CVSA's efforts to combat human trafficking and other related material on our website, landlinenow.com. Just click on the photo or headline in the red box to find all the email addresses, phone numbers, and websites we mention on the show. Again, that's at landlinenow.com. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us through a short commercial break. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Stock up on Howe's Diesel Treat, the nation's most trusted anti-gel. And to be safe from the harshest winter conditions, make sure you have Howe's Diesel Lifeline on hand, the fastest-acting gelling rescue product. Available nationwide, Howe's products are designed to keep you rolling through the toughest conditions. Visit howesproducts.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Welcome back to the show and a new year. But before we look ahead to hopefully brighter days on the spot market, let's take a look back at the last week of 2023 to see how we fared. Joining us, as always, to break down the numbers for us is Robert Rouse of DAT. Robert, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, as always. Happy New Year as well. And we're looking back to the last week, a holiday week we should mention, as we might remember. And as we look back at the holiday week, how did the spot market perform, Robert?
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest week of the year for sure, but last week was not only the last week of the shipping week of the year, but was another short week because Christmas fell on a Monday this year. Similar to the week prior, we saw the number of loads decrease again around 18%, down to 658,000 loads. While we expect lower spot market volume at this time of year, this has been one of the slowest Decembers in the last 7 years. So definitely, one to remember. One thing that we found interesting was large truckload carrier tender acceptance rates were at about 95%, which is extraordinarily high for this time of year. Normally, we would expect somewhere around 80% acceptance rates. And that's suggesting that there are far fewer loads dropping through the routing guides into the spot market, which is one reason why we're seeing less loads in the spot market at this moment. When we look at the number of loads or number of trucks on the DAT load board, they also decreased last week down to 190,000 trucks. While the holidays definitely impacted the number of trucks available, we are still seeing some carriers exit as the market continues to rebalance heading into a new year. And when we look at the overall strength of the spot market last week, we saw loaded truck ratios increase for all three equipment types. While this is really a good indicator most of the time, this market indicator is influenced by the large number of trucks that were not in the market last week, mostly due to the holidays. And while loaded truck ratios were all increased, when we look at multiple market factors, the spot market is still pretty soft as we move into the new year, and hopefully start to see stuff kick back up January, February. And lastly, when we think about rates, we saw national benchmark broker-to-carrier spot rates without fuel increase for all three equipment types. Flatbed rates increased by the least last week with just a modest 2 cent per mile increase. That said, dry vans were up almost 5 cents per mile, up to $2.58. There was also quite the surge in reefer rates last week. Almost exactly as the DAT ratecast predicted at the start of December, the forecast on December 5th for December 30th reefer rates was $2.19 per mile, and it actually came in at $2.18 per mile last week. Capacity is still exiting at a higher rate in December than November, and with two processing days last week, kind of helped boom that a little bit. The same happened in late 2019 as the capacity exited and rates spiked at the end of the year. USDA reported much tighter reefer capacity last week versus the same week in the previous year, which is definitely one of the potential reasons for that pricing surge.
Yeah, that reefer rate really jumped off the page for me when I saw it, and as you put it into context there, it makes sense. But very interesting there, indeed. I know you're always keeping your eyes peeled for hot markets that owner-operators can look to for hopefully better loads here. Which areas of the country right now are standing out to you as you look at the landscape of things out there?
Yeah, one of the great tools that we can use to look at which markets are hot is the USDA National Truck Rate Report. As we mentioned, we saw reefer freight surge last week, and that report showed several regions with a slight shortage of trucks, but one region stood out, even showing leaning to a full shortage of trucks, and that was Central and South Florida. And I thought it would be a good market to kind of shine some light on this week. Lakeland, Florida has a significant number of warehouses. The city is a hub for manufacturing and warehousing due to its strategic location and transportation infrastructure. There's also some prominent companies like Publix and Pepperidge Farms that have some major operations in Lakeland. The city has been expanding its warehousing capacity rapidly, adding over 1 million square feet of manufacturing and warehouse space each year. This growth has led to Lakeland having approximately 30 million square feet of warehouse space in total. And this extensive warehousing capacity is crucial for supporting the diverse industries in Lakeland, including some distribution, manufacturing, and agriculture. Trucking is the primary mode of freight shipping in Lakeland. The city strategic location has major highways like I-4, State Road 60, and U.S. Highway 27 all facilitate extensive road freight transportation through that area. And although Lakeland itself is not a port city, it is pretty well connected to nearby ports in Florida through its roads and rail networks. And these ports handle sea freight, linking Lakeland to international shipping routes all around the world. And you might be wondering, well, why now in the winter months is this market so good? In December and January, Lakeland, Florida is a part of a region that becomes a significant source of fresh fruits and vegetables. During these months, Florida fills a gap in domestic production, offering a variety of crops that are among the first domestic crops of the entire season.
Lakeland, Florida. We'll circle that on our maps there, Robert. As we kind of look back through 2023, it was obviously a tough year for a lot of folks. We're hoping 2024 marks a turnaround, but I think we all know when the recovery does happen, it's probably going to be a slow turnaround here. With that in mind, can you give listeners a little bit of advice for the new year as we wait for what we hope are brighter days?
Yeah, absolutely. The single most asked question that we get is what is going to happen to the economy this year and how will it impact the spot market? And while some may give a pretty quick answer of exactly how they're thinking, I thought it would be nice to give some tips on how every owner-operator can use data to be able to answer that for themselves. As I mentioned earlier, the biggest thing is not to get into what we call single factor analysis. This is where we may look at one piece of data like load-to-truck ratios and use that information to come to some sort of conclusion like how strong is the actual spot market. We actually have to look at a bunch of different things. When looking at a super complex question like how our market is performing, it's really important to look at multiple factors and trends so that you're not misled by the data that you're seeing. While having multiple data points is pretty crucial, it's also important to start out with just a couple and expand as needed. There's a lot of traps that you can get into, like analysis paralysis, if you're using too much data. For example, when you're looking at a market, while you can look at historical load-to-truck data, growth in warehousing and distribution centers, and seasonality impacts are all a great place to start. When owner-operators also monitor things like spot rates, as well as demand trends, they can adjust pricing and capacity allocation to maximize profitability. Spot rates and contract rates are not in sync at this time, and therefore owner-operators may need to move in a different direction as the market changes. So looking at how all of those actually correlate with each other really can help you understand where the market is going. Also, by using real-time trucking spot rate market rates and cutting-edge technology that provides them, owner-operators can secure the best rates for their loads. For the beginning of 2024 and likely into the second quarter of 2024, most analysts are predicting that overall rates will remain relatively flat on a national basis. However, there's always going to be hot markets. Markets where produce is being harvested or manufacturer supply chains require trucks on an immediate basis are all going to be super important and have a higher rate and be making more profitable rates for those carriers. Such markets provide opportunities for rates that are higher than those in the region or even the nation. So in order to find the hot markets, owner-operators need trusted data sources to really understand what the truckload capacity is going to be, as well as the types of freights that need to be hauled in that specific market. For DAT customers, we have our market conditions index that shows how tight capacity has been for the last 8 days. However, it can also predict the demand for the markets for up to 8 days in the future by using historical data as well.
Great advice there, Robert. We encourage everybody to check out the latest rate information at dat.com/trendlines, or they can get their weekly market updates on the DAT blog, which are published every Wednesday. Robert, we appreciate your time as always, and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Our thanks to Robert Rouse of DAT, and our thanks to you for listening to Landline Now. We're back tomorrow with another show. Until then, take care and drive safe.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome.
And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.